It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
To the program, we've got Congressman Rick Crawford on the line. Rick, good to have you back on, sir.
Hey, Paul, I was enjoying that bumper music there.
Yeah, I know. Sorry we cut it short. I wanted to get to the interview, but yeah, we'll get some more coming up here in just a minute, though. So tell us, where are you right now? Are you back in Arkansas? Are you in D.C.? What's going on with you?
We are in D.C. Right now and still in session, wrapping up the week.
Okay, so how are things? Like, what's going on right now?
Well, you may have seen the news on this. We voted on a balanced budget amendment. As you know, I've talked to you about this many times. I've worked hard to try and get a balanced budget amendment to the floor. I make this an issue every year, and this is the second time in the almost 8 years that I've been here that I've been given the opportunity to vote on a balanced budget amendment.
Mm-hmm.
And yet we still had 6 Republicans who voted no. So I'm trying to figure that one out. We had 3 Democrats that voted yes, but ultimately we had 233 votes. You need 287 to send it over to the Senate, so we fell short over here.
Wow. Well, yeah, that's unfortunate. And right now it seems like there's if you read the media reports, I mean, the media, the liberal media, they're out there saying, "Hey, Republicans are worried and they're scared and about the midterms and things like that." And then you hear, if you go to the liberal, really the ones that are openly liberal, it's like a blue wave is coming and that sort of thing. And so you talk a little bit about that. I mean, what are your thoughts on the potential of a blue wave?
Well, I tell you what, the punditry has got it wrong consistently. They were decidedly wrong on President Trump. There must have been 90+% of the media that projected him, not just, we think he's, going to lose, but, we're projecting Hillary as the winner. I mean, they were doing everything in the world they could to, line up for a coronation, and they were all wrong. And their polling underlying their projections was wrong. And they haven't learned from anything. They haven't learned, their polling methodology was flawed, and they haven't learned, really what drove people to vote for Donald Trump in the first place. And I think that sentiment still exists widely across the country, and that you really want to see Nancy Pelosi as Speaker of the House, because she's not doing her team any favors by continually going out there and talking about the crumbs of tax reform and things of that nature. She had the temerity to talk about, to quote Martin Luther King, I think it was yesterday or the day before, talking about, when there are people in abject poverty, there shouldn't be people with, opulent wealth, paraphrasing. And she is one of those that is opulently wealthy. I mean, it boggles the mind that she can stand there straight-faced and say some of the things that she says and expect people are going to connect with that and believe it. She comes from a very wealthy family. She's one of the richest members of Congress, and yet she's going to try and pretend as though somehow she's got a connection to the poor, downtrodden people of America who are barely getting by, and then at the same time calling their tax reform bonus, crumbs.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a huge disconnect there. The left is lurching further. I mean, the Democrats in Washington are lurching further and further to the left. And as long as they have Nancy Pelosi as their poster child, I don't think they can expect the blue wave that they're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, and I would agree with that. I'm just hoping that. To me, let me just say this: there is not a positive word that the press can say about President Donald Trump, and without even getting into the Russia situation and their constant obsession with that. But it seems to me that if you really kind of take a long view of this over the first year of his presidency into now, there's a lot of traps and nets that I feel like that the media and the left, they fall into their own nets. They fall into their own traps for this guy. I mean, right now we're looking at an amazing situation that happened last week. Saudi Arabia recognized Israel's right to exist. And you look at the Korean Peninsula potentially being denuclearized if Kim Jong-un and the meeting actually takes place. I mean, there's a lot of potential. There's a lot of positive, and then there's some potential positive things, and I think President Trump is an integral part of that right now.
No, I think that's true, and I think that you would think after almost a year and a half in, as he's been president now for almost a year and a half, he's proven them wrong at every turn. I mean, I don't always agree with necessarily the tone or the type of rhetoric that the president puts out there. But one of the things that I've had to come to terms with, and I had to do this with Obama, you've got to look past the personality and look at the policy, and the numbers don't lie. I mean, our economic trajectory has improved tremendously. Opportunities for people across the economic spectrum are much, much better. I mean, historically better. And so, I know it's easy to focus in on someone with a big personality, be honest about it, a big ego. It's easy to get focused in on all of that. And that's one of the things that I've had to condition myself to is to look beyond that and focus in on the policy and the numbers. And you'll see that there is an awful lot to be excited about that has transpired over the last year and a half or so, and that's directly attributable to this president. Mm-hmm. At the same time, President Obama may be one of the most charismatic individuals to occupy the White House, certainly, in my lifetime. Was a great speaker, very eloquent, and I met him 2 or 3 times, and he's very, very friendly. But his policies were the worst thing in the world. Mm-hmm. I mean, they were terrible. There was very seldom anything we agreed on. And so, again, you have to get past the personal, presentation and focus in on the policy. And if you can do that, you can make a better judgment about whether you support this policy or that policy.
Yeah.
Take away the personalities and focus in on the policy.
Yeah, it's it's what you do, for sure. Actions are bigger than words. And let me we're talking with Congressman Rick Crawford. I mean, you said he proves them wrong time and again. I mean, think about when he came out and he said, I found out that I was wiretapped, and the media freaks out and everything else. And and then, of course, you being on the Intel Committee, and you guys are voting to release that memo, and we now know, we know that was true, I mean, and is there any more fallout from that, by the way? I haven't really heard anything else to come from, that memo, but that memo was very revealing.
Well, that's why you haven't heard anything more about it. Because it was accurate, and then of course the Democrat response to it was inaccurate and full of pejorative and personal attacks that really just were sort of a knee-jerk reaction to the factual presentation we made in that memo. It's important to know that if that were false, if we had done put bad information out there, the media would be still harping on it. Mm-hmm. That memo issue has gone away. Then we're moving on to the next issue. Now, even our findings and recommendations that are coming out on the Russia investigation that the House Intel Committee just recently concluded, you haven't heard much about that either. And there was big furor over, they're shutting down the investigation too soon, and how can we do this? Well, you haven't heard much about that either. So you'll, in the next, week or so, that's all been submitted to the intelligence community for declassification.
Okay.
It'll come out, be made public, and there will be a minority view addendum, but they'll all come out as a single document, the findings, recommendations, and then the minority view. And see for yourself, make the assessment on your own. I'm not going to try and bias you or anything like that, and then we'll talk again when you've had a chance to review all that.
Okay.
And I would encourage you to do it. It'll be out there online in the public space, and you'll be able to pull it and look at it. And you will be absolutely amazed when you read it.
Okay, I'm now intrigued. I can't wait. That's sounds awesome. Because I just feel like I just know the media is what they're doing is they're certainly putting out something that I don't believe is factual when it comes to this whole Russia investigation and everything else. So I appreciate the work that you're doing. Congressman Rick Crawford,
Sure.
Can we talk about the tariff situation that's kind of been going on with China? And there's probably some Arkansas farmers out there listening, and they probably kind of want to know what your thoughts are on that.
I hope there are a lot of farmers listening right now, because I don't know look, there's a whole lot of farmers that have my cell phone number, and when there's problems and they want to call, they got an issue, they call me, and I make myself available to my constituents, and I want them to know this, that this goes back to the look past the personality and the rhetoric and focus in on the numbers. The numbers are on our side. Now, I will say this, in the rhetoric that ensued immediately after the announcement of the tariffs, the Chinese are announcing they're going to retaliate X, Y, and Z and all this other kind of stuff. And you look at what's happening with the soybean market. So the soybean market reacts and starts to go down. I can't prove this, but common sense dictates, and based on the past behavior of China, you can probably assume that they shorted soybeans before they started the economic saber rattling.
Okay.
So they shorted the soybean market. That's number one. Run the price down through this process, and when it finds the bottom, then they buy up in cash. So good deal for China. Okay, so we again, this really kind of underlies the whole point of what Trump is making, is that they manipulate, they don't play by the rules, they utilize their status as a developing economy as they're recognized by the WTO, which absolutely is completely unfounded. They are not a developing economy. They are a very developed and aggressively growing economy, and in fact a belligerent actor in the economy.
Yeah.
And so they shouldn't have that kind of status. But when they get that status, they get to play by a different set of rules. And so that's one thing to consider. It's been going on for 20 plus years. So all these things have to happen to get right. But in the short term, is this going to affect Arkansas farmers? It might to some degree, but by the time we get to harvest, you look at what's going on right now. The Chinese have a huge demand for soybeans and corn. They've got to buy it somewhere. Argentina is having a crop failure for all intent and purpose, major drought. They can't rely on Argentina to fill the orders and to meet their demand. So the soybeans are going to come from somewhere else. So in a manner of speaking, these commodities like soybeans and corn, to a large degree, are what you might call fungible, in that in the marketplace, they're going to move around. They're going to go where they need to go. So we might not necessarily have to directly sell our soybeans to China with a 25% tariff tacked on it. That's not even going to happen. But if it did, we could just transship through Argentina and other countries, just like they've been doing with steel. So, the point I'm trying to make is our soybeans are going to find their way into the marketplace to fill the demand in the marketplace. And this is a short-term blip whereby the Chinese are doing everything they can to their own gain to take effect or take advantage of a market, a short-term market advantage, if you will, that they created.
Yeah.
So none of the fundamentals have changed. They have to consume our soybeans.
Yeah.
They just don't have the resources themselves. They've got 1.4 billion population, an increased livestock sector placing more demand on their need for corn and soybeans. So, I hope farmers will, and I know they do. And the reason I know that they recognize this because I haven't been getting any calls.
Okay, so they understand, and
they absolutely. Farmers are smart.
Yes, they are.
And,
hey, do you think people are kind of excited though? I mean that the Trump administration. I mean, I know economic saber rattling. I like that term, by the way. But that there's somebody trying to be proactive to stop China from manipulating the way they are doing things. That this is kind of a necessary. This is a necessary action that the president's taking.
Oh, we're all engaged in that. In fact, the president, he's got a new economic advisor in Larry Kudlow, his trade representative, Lighthizer. Everybody that's involved in trade and in this global economic cadre that he has, they're all involved in that, trying to hold their feet to the fire and recognize that China has got to be held to account if they're going to continue to be considered a developing economy. Then it's going to put everybody else at a disadvantage. The good news is countries like in the European Union, Great Britain, Japan, Korea, others in the Pacific Rim, Australia, New Zealand, they all understand that the Chinese have been manipulating, continue to manipulate. They float their currency, they cheat, and take advantage of people. They all recognize this. So we have a huge coalition, economic coalition, that will address this, I think, aggressively to prevent China from continuing to cheat the way they do.
And then I saw where, after the tariff thing came out, then I guess, was it on Tuesday, I think you heard that, China then lowered their tariff on foreign car imports, which is going to help companies like Ford. I thought that was interesting. It's almost like there was some sort of, give and take there.
Well, there absolutely is, because they know that they can only, carry out this bluff for so long. The truth of the matter is, we've been on the the bad end of the stick for quite some time, and so credit where credit's due. That this is a president that's recognized that and is trying to take action, and we might have to grit our teeth, in the very short term, but we're in a much better position now, and you can see the evidence of that, because they're already coming back to the table and saying, well, okay, let's do this. We'll take this tariff down. We'll do this and we'll do that. And they know that they're going to have to play ball to some degree. And, look, Xi Jinping is for China and Trump is for the United States. And that's the way it's supposed to be.
Yes.
But all of us have to be in this. And what I don't like seeing is when you get these guys, particularly if this takes place over in the Senate, and they start, getting, they're so erudite over there and they're smarter than everybody else. And so it's like, oh, no, we don't want to ruffle the Chinese feathers, Well, that's what's got us in this point now. Is that we've never taken a hard line with China. Never have. We've never expected or demanded any kind of, equity from them. And now we've got this huge trade surplus that they take advantage of, our trade deficit on our part that they take advantage of and manipulate us. And it's just time to, to change the rules and start looking out for our best interests.
Yeah, I completely agree. Congressman Rick Crawford, it's always great to talk to you. Next time we speak, hopefully I'll have read that, I guess it's going to declassification final report from the Intel Committee, and we're going to have another interview.
Yep.
It's going to be great.
Sounds great. Appreciate you.
All righty. Thank you. Rick Crawford calling from Washington, D.C. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got to take a break. It's Johnny Cash Friday. Back in a moment.